Joining me now is former House Speaker and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here. Your reaction to President Trump's moves now?
Well, he's doing exactly the right thing. People need to remember the District of Columbia is a national capital. It belongs to all of the American people. And you should be able, no matter who you are, as a citizen, you should be able to visit your capital. You should be safe. The capital should be beautiful. You should be proud of it. The Founding Fathers deliberately created a federal capital. They wanted it not to be controlled by any state, and they wanted the federal government ultimately to be accountable for it. When I was Speaker, we basically took over the district government, reorganized it, restructured it, and led to about a 10-year boom in investments, home buying, people moving in. It worked very well until, frankly, as in many big cities, the combination of big government socialism with radical values and unionized bureaucracy, it all just decayed. And now it's decayed enough. I'm delighted that President Trump has the courage to step in and decide that the American people should take back their capital, make it safe for everyone, and do the things necessary to make it once again a beautiful, remarkable capital city.
I totally agree with you. I mean, this is the entree into America. This is the city of government. You would think that if you're going to commit a crime, you don't want to do it in Washington, and yet crime has been spiking. That's the arrogance of it all. How do you explain the Democrats' pushback on this?
Look, the Democrats, tragically, have become a party of big government socialism with radical values. They prefer the criminal to the police. They prefer breaking up the law and order rather than enforcing law and order. They are for open borders. They're for massive numbers of illegal immigrants. They are for people getting paid to not work. They oppose work requirements. And so there's the whole ideology. The Democratic Socialists had their party recently and basically argued that they're going to take over the Democratic Party by 2028. And you look at people like Mamdani, the candidate for governor, candidate for mayor in New York. I mean, he's an outright socialist who believes in big government, who's anti-police, and there's this passion that runs through the left to disband the police. They come up with ideas like, well, we'll get rid of the police, but we'll have officers who go out and they are nice people. And you know, you tell that to somebody who's faced with 3 or 4 Venezuelan gangbangers with guns, and you're just going to get the police killed. So we've had a tremendous decline in respect for the police, and that's at the heart of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, you know what else this Mamdani is anti? He's anti-Trump. The mayoral candidate kicked off his quote-unquote 5 boroughs against Trump tour yesterday. He kicked it off in Manhattan. The self-described Democrat socialist is vowing to oppose the president, quote, every step of the way. Watch this, Newt.
Donald Trump does not respond well to cowardice, to collaboration. He requires a response that showcases the ability to fight back against that same agenda. My administration would be Donald Trump's worst nightmare. How else can you describe a president who has sought to entertain suggestions of deporting me, of arresting me, of taking control of the city over the will of New Yorkers? Those are the actions of a president who is afraid of the fact that I will actually deliver in a manner where he is simply betrayed.
Yeah, Newt, something tells me that Zoran Mamdani is hardly President Trump's worst nightmare. In fact, the president had some choice words from Mamdani when I asked him about it a month and a half ago. Watch this.
What did you make of the New York Democrat primary? Mamdani.
He's a communist. I think it's very bad for New York. I don't know that he's going to get in. It's inconceivable that but he's a communist, and he's a pure communist. I think he admits it. But I can't imagine it. But let's say this. If he does get in, I'm going to be president, and he's going to have to do the right thing, or they're not getting any money. He's got to do the right thing. It's shocking that I would have assumed that I used to say we will never have a socialist in this country. No, but we'll have a communist. I mean, he's a communist and going to be mayor of New York. So I was very surprised when I said, I never heard of him.
Who would you be poised to support in New York? I know that you live in...
I don't want to say that because you know, I have a lot of people, a lot of friends, and I have everybody, so I don't want to get into that. I can tell you this, whoever's mayor of New York is going to have to behave themselves, or the federal government is coming down very tough on them financially.
And Newt, President Trump can do that. He can hold back federal money, and that will put Mamdani in a box. Do you expect President Trump to weigh in on the New York mayoral race at some point before November?
Well, he might. I mean, I think the question is, does it help or hurt? I think they have in Curtis Sliwa, they have a Republican candidate who right now is in the race. I mean, Mamdani's clearly ahead. And in a city that's 70% Democrat, if you're the Democratic nominee, you have a huge advantage. And frankly, he's getting a lot of support. There was an article yesterday that in Silicon Valley, the workers at places like Meta and Google are sending money to Mamdani because they admire his big government socialist approach. But the picture you showed of Mamdani, think about this irony. It was the healthcare workers were standing behind him with signs. Guess what percent of their salaries come from federal programs, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, or other programs? So Mamdani's going to pick a fight with the one guy who can financially cripple New York City. It's a sign of being utterly out of touch with reality and living a fantasy life of big government socialist dreams.
And just simply uninformed about the realities of the President of the United States. Newt, it's always great to talk with you. Thank you, sir. Newt Gingrich joining us. We've got Lee Zeldin and Secretary